Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome to another math class. Forgive my voice. So we finished, or let me see, concluded the previous all of these topics here in the last math class. So in today's math class, we're going to be learning about indices, logarithms, and sorts. And before we actually Before we actually get started, we need to learn some very basic, or let me say essential parts of mathematics. Maths is all about equations, terms, basically everything about calculations. So we actually need to, let me say, the structure, um, the basic terminologies in it. So let me start with explaining what a term is, the components of a term, what an expression is, and all of that. So before we actually get started on our today's topic. So imagine you have something like this: 2x, or let me actually use different colors. First one, 2, second column. So when you see something like this is what we call a term. Like altogether, 2x2 is called a term. Now let's look at each and every one of these components of this term and what they actually mean. So this 2 over here stands for, it is known as the coefficient. So this is the number that is standing in front of the letter. Like if you read from left to right, it is the one standing in front of the letter. Or if you were reading from right to left, it would be the one behind the letter. Or we read left to right, except some Japanese comics, I guess. So the common way is reading left to right. So that's why we see the coefficient is in front of the letter we have here. So it's the component. It tells you how many of these x we have. So we have 2x squared. Like we read this together. We read this together. So we're saying, oh, we have 2. Let me try and use brackets to explain this. We have, this is 2, so we have 2 of this x squared. If we put this one aside, so we have 2 of this x squared. So the coefficient tells you how many of that of the of this of what is in front of it we have. So we have 2 of this. So that's all we need to know about the coefficient. Now let's look at the next one, which is the letter here. And this letter, we don't just call it a letter in maths, we call this a variable. So it's, let me say, a placeholder for a value we don't have. You may be a bit confused as to what a placeholder is, so let me just do a quick. You know how in forms you have something like this, and then let me see, this is Mr. Form, and then you have like a button here that says submit. I'm not worried if you can't read it. Just know that this is the submit button. Now, sometimes when you go to a page, let me say Google Forms, or let me not even use Google Forms for example, any random website that asks you to sign up, there's a kind of like a placeholder, like they'll say your name here, your name, your name here. And then when you put your cursor like this, when you put it here, you see this texting here. If you put it on top of this, you'll be able to type your name, right? Yeah. So that's what we're calling a placeholder. It's just there to represent a future value that we are going to have in there. So this x is just like standing in gap. We don't know what the value is, but we know that there's going to be a value that we need to calculate, but we don't know its value. We don't know what it is exactly, so we just replace it and put it as an x. So we don't know it yet. The value can change, so at the moment we just use x to represent it. It's a placeholder. I hope that is a clear definition. Now let's look at the next component of this term, which is this power up here. So this is the exponent. You can see we're treating laws of indices, so this is already giving you like a kind of teaser as to what we are actually trying to learn about. So this exponent here, we also call it a power. Let me just use text. There's no text. Sorry. So can have something like this exponent. It's known as an exponent. It's also known as a power. Yes, it's spelled like a regular power. And then it can also be called an index. So it has three different names: an exponent, a power, and an index. So this little number that is floating here, we can also call it like a superscript. This is it over, so you get it in word. So you can also refer to it as a superscript. So this number that is floating at the top right tells you how many times to multiply the variable by itself. So you know how in preschool or primary school you can have something like, you can say 2 to the power of 2 is equal to 2 times 2. So you can see the reason or what this little power over here does. So that's essentially it. We have 2 to the power of 2, and that will give it 2 times 2. Now let's use this x that we have here for example. So this here will give you, let's see, so if we have x to the power of 2, this is the same as saying x times x. So instead of making the whole thing messy and saying something like, let me rewrite this over here. We have like 2, we don't have in bracket, x times x. So you see, it's already looking messy and I'm not even done. So like, this is just the graphical or the expanded form of this 2x to the power of 2. This is how it looks like here. So I hope this was clear. And this is a term, and in case you are wondering, what about an equation? So an equation is just like a term like this, but it's completed. It makes a complete mathematical sentence because it has an equals to and is equal to it. Now I don't know how many of you are extreme beginners, so let me just quickly solve this, because this is an equation and the x is unknown, so it's not actually part of today's class, but it's also kind of part of it. So let me just quickly solve this. So we need to get the x, for example. So what will we do? Divide both sides by 2. That is, we're using the coefficient here to divide the coefficient here, because it also has like this 8 here. We can also refer it to it as a term, or it lacks a variable and an exponent because they are just like times 0, times 1 times 1. They don't exist actually. So we use this coefficient here to divide this one. 2 here, 1, 2 in 8, 4. So what we're left with now is x squared is equal to 4, and there's no more coefficient to divide both sides by, but we have a power, and this is square, so the opposite of the square is what? Square root. So we're going to do this square root of both sides, because square root is equal to 1 over 2. I know I'm not supposed to be doing this, but I want you guys to understand So if we take the square root of both sides, so we can remove this square. If we take the square root of this, we're just saying that, oh, this is 1 over 2. So essentially, when you do something like this, it actually means 1 over 2 over here, x squared, and then these 2's are cancelling out. Remember, so it's like the verse. I hope you understand that. So let me just wipe that off. So we're doing the square root of both sides. So we're also going to do the square root of 4. So square root of 4. So this square root here is going to cancel the square. And the square root of 4, if you input that into your calculator, you're going to get 2. So x is equal to 2. So I hope this introductory class was clear. And then I'll see you in the next video.